So Q says, now if you follow the channel, you'll know Q's comments. Well, you should. If you don't, read through every single case and have a look at what Q says every time. Really, really awesome at putting it into like bullet point perspective almost. So it says, Candace Summer Grandma planted the flowers just right before Candace went back to help Grandma with her knee brace, and Candace went back to the house and the boys said Summer went downstairs to play with her toys. Candace called for Summer and no response. Summer was gone. Now there's nothing mentioned after they got home and put up the groceries. Candace said, we then did normal stuff, everyday stuff, until Candace happened to notice Grandma sitting outside at her trailer, and Candace steps outside and asks Grandma why she's outside. That's when Grandma said she needed to transplant the flowers. Candace said it probably took about 40 minutes to plant the flowers. So I'm figuring there is roughly 4 p.m. to 5:30 they did normal everyday stuff. In all of the 15th of June date, throughout the day times we do know, I don't see Don in those charts. I do not think Don was involved at all. Now I'm going to maybe interact into that one and say I don't know if that's necessarily true, but nonetheless it could definitely be the case. I've been feeling that way right up until I re-looked at the charts today. But so the 309 chart has both Pluto and Saturn sitting in the chart's 4th house, but by 6:32, the 911 call, Pluto has moved into the chart's 2nd house and Saturn is into the chart's 3rd house. At least 2 people was on the property, not counting the 3 boys. At 309, Saturn is at 13 degrees retrograde, coming from the degree before at 14. Saturn shows older, grandparents disabled. 13 degrees is Aries, head, scars, birthmarks, freckles. 14 degrees is Taurus, fat, ears, nose, throat, chin, slow, curly hair, singing. Retrograde is to return, to redo, to repeat, go backwards. They was pacing. Very, very interesting. Pluto, criminal, bow-legged, dark, looks or is pregnant, hidden. 26 Taurus, see above. Retrograde coming from behind, coming from the degree before at 27, so coming from behind. Gemini, hands, shoulders, I just added that in there, it's not even there. Or more, fingers, hands, walking, lungs, younger or younger looking. Pluto is the one who lured, snatched Summer. I agree, Pluto is definitely the lurer or the instigator of the actual situation. It's that aspect to the moon is shocking. These 2 or more people have been to that property and was casing the place at 309, left but was around the area. The ruler of the descendant Venus sitting in the chart's 8th house at 16 Cancer, home, house, property, family, public. At 6:32, the descendant is hidden from the public, but at their home in property. The chart's 4th house, cusp Pisces, hotel, hidden, temporary, drug, alcohol, cigarettes, water, bedroom, bathroom. Ruler, Neptune in the 4th house, co-ruler of the 4th house, Jupiter, borders, foreigners, horses, religion, law, at 2 degrees Taurus in the chart's 3rd house. Moved across county lines, property lines. Yep, I'm heading that way. Taurus comes up a lot in the degrees, cusps, etc., and it does. Could this have all been to get the Wells to sell their property? You know, it's not the weirdest thing to think that based on this chart. The fact that Jupiter and DNA in the chart is very close to that 4th house cusp really makes me think that county lines, you know, it's very possible that they need to be looking in Virginia, up above that Bristol area, maybe. I don't know if I don't believe that Don was not involved. I think that possibly Don is. Okay, so Q's continuing to talk and talk to Patsy here. Anything to do with inheritances or deeds with two or more people's names on them. Did one buy out, sell land to the other on the deeds? Also look to see if any went through or was locked up in probate. Any that financing fell through. Any sold for very cheap under the appraisal value. Any gifted, lost during a divorce, separation, couldn't claim it due to not being married. No longer legally able to stake claims due to adoption. Was anything exchange of equal or greater value? Did you put on a lien? Anyone owe back taxes? Any try to do a rent to own it and fell through? Any land to put into a trust or part of a trust? Did the Wells rent out or lease any of their property? Well, I think they might have. Who benefits from the Wells leaving that property? Don. He benefits. He's the inheritor of that property. Check to see when and if the Wells advertising selling any of the part. Yeah, you can find that online, by the way. I've checked and I've looked. Anyone that worked in the tree trimming service, own, rent, lease, or have family that did the surrounding the Wells property. Any way to find out who's been looking or inquiring for property records in the last year. That's really very interesting because there's so much second house information in this chart and so much Taurus, like you said. And, obviously there really feels like there's an underhanded thing to it. But, when we go with this, if I'm thinking along these lines, which I completely agree and understand what you mean, but if I was going along these lines, I would tend to think that it's very possible that she's been sold but alive. So I would be hopeful if this is in fact the case and this is going on, because I don't think there's a revenge plot to a little girl because of property, but there's definitely the fact that maybe Don Wells is not adverse to giving his children away. We've learned that. So it's really something to think about. But I'm going to go back on the very first part of it and, and have a chat about that as well. So I can answer this properly, and I really want to answer it well. I'm not disputing any of it, at all, and I'm really actually not, because all of it is extremely sensible, makes sense, is understandable, and astrologically impeccable, by the way. And I'm going to bring up the next bit that you've talked about, which is the Yod, which I know you keep bringing up, and I see the Yod, and the Yod is very, very important. But anyway, okay, back on track a little bit. After watching Chris McDonough, thank you very much, Chris McDonough, for everything that you do, getting the interviews. It's weird that he can get these interviews, and law enforcement let him, by the way. I find that really strange. Crowdsourcing criminal investigations is nuts. And right now, by the way, Don Wells is going off on his Facebook page about everything. So if you'd watched that, listen to everything, and then start putting some things into context. Don Wells has every reason to be involved, and I see him in the charts, but for some reason I can't see him as the sun. The sun's usually always the father, and sometimes you can look to Saturn to represent the father, but I'm going to have a look at those two again. But I mean, the sun is sitting there in the 7th house. It's pretty silly that we don't think that he's got to know something that's going on. And now that we know his history and he's unravelling quickly, like a narcissist does. I hate using that word now. I wish they'd come up with a new word. But a true narcissist will fight till the death, thinking that they're right. He's going to go down and go down and go down. He'll go downhill, and I'm going to show you something really funny actually soon. one of the symbols for his sun is that very thing, him tumbling down and down into the abyss. And that's where he's heading right now. So something is going on with Don. But I can see why you think that there wasn't anything going on with Don, because throughout all the charts, I'm like, I even wrote on the corner of the chart, where's Don? And that wasn't just, where was he during the day and everything. Literally, where's Don in this whole thing? It's so geared towards the mother. So I get that. The 309 chart, I haven't looked at it for very long, but I reckon we should have a look at it and talk about what you've got here. Okay, so the 309 chart has both Pluto and Saturn sitting in the 4th house. Let's have a look at that. So there we go. Pluto and Saturn sitting in the 4th house, exactly. Saturn is retrograde. Yes, Pluto is retrograde. So that's redoing, going back, pacing, just as you've mentioned. Now, the Yod, I'm just going to look at the Yod right now, between the Sun up there in the 9th house, just in front of his boys. This is really weird. It's like he's always just in front of his boys, or just the boys are going to be what the tumbling of this truly is from, I believe. It'll come from the boys, because they're just right behind him there. That retrograde Mercury. They're not going to, Mercury's moving away from the Sun. It's not closer to him, so that's them. They're gone. They've left him, the house. And here he is alone with God in the 9th house. And do you remember when I did the very, very first chart? The first thing I said was, this guy is going to grab onto religion like you wouldn't believe it. And I had no idea of how far he was going to go into this religious stuff. But the Yod even here is right there, from the 4th house to the 9th house to the 11th of groups. So that's interesting to me. That's like the person, and this is the dastardly deed, isn't it? Pluto at 26 degrees. It's I think, without even me saying, and we've skirted around it, and now there's been a lot of discussion of abuse and different types of abuse. I think we know what this is showing us. Definitely abuse going on. Smudge says so too. Okay, back to at 309, Saturn's retrograde, coming from the degree before at 14. Yes, Saturn is older, grandparents, disabled. Saturn can also be the father as well, or like extra kick on the father. We've got the Sun and Saturn involved in that Yod, but not always. And it usually is older people, but it can be a father as well. In these, I've seen it time and time again. 2 retros, 2 redo, 2 repeat, go backwards. They was pacing. I completely agree. It's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And in that sense, I'll quickly go back again, because there's something that just keeps sticking out, and it is this Saturn at 13 degrees squaring Uranus at 13 degrees. And I mean, look at this chart. Uranus is right on the 8th house cusp of death. That's an accident, and this is This is death, or an older person or grandparent. So if she was in the vehicle at this point, right, and still asleep, she's Mars, right, from the first chart. Summer is Mars in Leo. in the 10th house. So she's in the car, out in the sun, in the hot Leo car. An accident. And Mars also represents vehicles. The 3rd house cusp ruler is Jupiter, which is making the closest aspect to Mars in the 5th house. That's the child. I'm thinking out aloud now. This chart actually really, I don't know whether it's just reflecting the fact that she was asleep in the car, but if she was left in a hot car and something happened, this chart could be the result of that. I just have to say that. Yep. And I'm going to have to go back on another chart because I think there's other clues to that, actually, now that I look at this. Okay, I've got sidetracked, but that's how my brain works, so I apologise. I have Uranus on the ascendant. Yeah. So I read this before. Yes, I agree with everything. I'm going to actually, I might just bring up, I wanted to put this here, yeah, moved across county lines, property lines. Very interesting. Looking at the 632 chart, as you've said here, that Jupiter, that right next to the 4th house, but in the 3rd house, is definitely a border. And I know I went to the border of Virginia and Tennessee looking at Bristol. So, and I was thinking, oh my God, the border's so close. That's easy to get across state lines. So yes, and that's my fear. It's my fear and not my fear. Sort of not my fear that maybe she's possibly alive, and I don't get that feeling very often, so I'm clinging to it. But then also my fear that she's so far away that it's going to just yeah, the other option is that she's so far away that she's not going to be found, and I just I'm really hopeful that she's within the 2.6 mile to 27 or possibly 29 miles max radius. But then again, this is following the same path astrologically as it did with Gannon, where we were following the charts around and following Letitia around with the charts, and it was way further than I thought to look. So maybe at this point in time we should consider 270 miles and see where that goes. How long does it take to travel 270 miles? Was it at all humanly possible for them to go 27 miles or 270 miles? I don't know mileage that well, but so, yeah. There's enough people in these people's lives to be casing the place for some reason, but I don't know if there's enough people in their lives to want to take summer. And considering we've heard that Don Wells tried to sell his kids, or did sell his kids, that's a worry. That is a big worry. I think selling children replaces property in this instance in terms of astrology and that 2nd house. But yeah, so Taurus does come up a lot in everything. So it's showing the money and the property and those types of things. But it's, yeah, especially so now with the information that we know. Of course, first we need to look at the Yod. So this is what Hugh said about the Yod just about an hour ago. So Don's past might be what has put all this into motion, which may well be the Yod. Exactly. Pluto, possible revenge, sexual abuse, yes. In conjunct the sun, brother, husband, father, yeah. conjunct Mercury, the youth, in the 10th house, the father. Yep. I hadn't even read this properly until I'd read, I skimmed it and then read that, and then it's funny, we've hit the same things. The Yods release point is wide with Venus in the 11th. Yep, money, land, Venus, yep. Also not until 1221, a second Yod is formed with the moon in the 12th house in conjunct Neptune. Drugs, deception, alcohol, cigarettes, isolation, hospitals, water, swimming, pitches, places at the highest point. Feet in the chart's 7th house. Descendants first, in conjunct Pluto in the 5th. Right, yes, okay, yeah, in the 5th, yep. The release point, wide aspect, Saturn, yep, grandparents, that thing we were talking about before, retrograde in the 6th house, to hire, to serve, job, health. Yeah. It's looking more and more to do with revenge for sexual abuse. Could the perpetrator be known through or hired by Don's family? Well, you know, Don's family's got it out for him. But I think it's just possibly they're able to say, finally, because people are approaching them and asking them, and he hates them anyway, they're telling the truth. I feel that he's got a long history of abuse. I mean, he admitted that he had a sexual relationship with his cousin and other people. You know, it's messed up. It is some Jerry Springer shit, no matter what he says. I've lost the point because I've got stuck into Don Welton. Like, he's just really bugging me now. He's really he's Letitia Stout to me. He's picking up the pace where he's like, he's probably going to run soon. Shit, is he going to run? Okay, we need to go back and look at some charts. I might have skipped a bit and said I was going to do something and I didn't, but what's going on in this case, and please, if you agree, tell me, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that agree. There's this crazy nervous energy. It's anxious. It's really heavy on my chest. It's very desperate. I can't stop thinking about it. It's getting like, the energy's getting bigger and heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. It's picking up the pace, something cruel, and my mind is all over the place. I can't focus on anything other than this until something happens next, and I truly believe something's going to happen soon because I can't tolerate this physically, seriously. Okay, this is Mr. Wells on the outside, his birth chart with the 911 call. Now, I don't have his time, but so we basically disregard the position of the moon and Mercury to a degree, a little bit, not much, the ascendant, and we can't look at his houses, but we have him placed over the chart. So this is his sun here at 22 degrees of Scorpio, conjunct Neptune. Not great. It's in the 12th house. It's hidden. It's deceptive. It's conjunct the ascendant. Both of these. His sun is conjunct her ascendant. There's no doubt about that. His sun is conjunct the ascendant at the time. That's not great for him at all, just straight off the bat. So the degrees of his sun is 22 of Scorpio. So look at the closest one I can see immediately is to Neptune here. So the lies, the drugs, the drink and everything. And then look at that, his moon and Chiron is right there in that vicinity of Venus. Could be conjunct Venus, we don't know. It's got 13 degrees to move for a whole day, so I don't know. It could be at any position from the beginning of Pisces to the end, pretty much. But it's in the general area here. But, yeah, look at that. And then that also, factors into this sun over here. All in orb. So we've got connections coming up here. See, so you know that when you've got something that looks so obviously suspicious, it means that there's something a little bit suspicious going on there. His Mars is at 4 degrees of Virgo, and it would be at 4 degrees of Virgo, so it sits right there near that moon. That's his aggression. And it's strong, critical, strong. He's being critical, he's being obtuse, he's being, you will listen and do what I say. So what time is this? 6:32. He's ruling this situation, but heavily involved in it. But obviously he is heavily involved in it because he's the father. Still. Let's have a look at another one. Okay, now the picture looks different, but we've got the 911 chart inside still. Her sun is over here, conjunct Uranus. And remember what I said before about Uranus. So she's over this side here now. Her Mars, her Saturn, Pluto, everything really over here is uninteresting in comparison to Don Wells. She does have Uranus on the ascendant in the chart, and it is conjunct it, but widely. So we've got two connections with Uranus. Her Sun and Uranus in health, and then her Uranus and Summer's physical health. Now I know what I was going to look at, another chart to see about the possible thing of whether she passed away in the car from heat. Which we can look at this chart actually to see that, because it's the 632 chart. Okay, so unlike the other chart I just showed you where there was all those really detrimental areas, and Smudge is knocking things over now, there's just really a couple of areas here that show me that there's possibly something that she knows in relation to an accident or the sudden disappearance. That's another thing. Uranus is sudden, quick. In Taurus, it's not so quick, mind you. It's a little slower. But we have to remain a little open about that. But let's consider the fact that maybe something happened in the vehicle and then the police were called at this time. Saturn, which is the physical body, is in the 3rd house of the vehicle. That's interesting because that makes that square to Uranus in the 6th house of health, so sudden health issues in a vehicle. Her being represented by Mars in hot, scorching Leo, and Mars also represents vehicles. So this is probably one of the most complex things I've had to try and unravel. And there are a lot of scenarios, and each scenario is playing out bit by bit, which is sometimes not really helpful because it's just not pointing directly where we want it to. But it is playing out still, nonetheless. And the one thing that I do know is that there's momentum picking up. Now Smudge is having a drink. Hang on, guys. I changed charts. I've got a cleaner chart with lower orbs. I just wanted to bring out the orbs that were really important here. Note the part of fortune there at 29 degrees next to Pluto. I think we should always look at that too. So yeah, looking at it, it's almost like they've, if Saturn went, okay, at 3:09, Saturn's in the 4th house. It's past the 3rd house, so she was sitting in the car, but then by the 4th house, that shows deceased. I think we need to see Saturn move to the 4th house cusp and show us what time it is. 3:09, Saturn is, and we're looking at it as the physical body, okay, right now, and especially because of, look at where Uranus is on the 8th house. Now we're going to move it backwards until it hits this IC and see what time it is. So we'll edit the birth data and we're going to go 4:45. We're going to go forward to go backwards. Oh, look at that. We're almost close as. All right. It's right there, 3 degrees away. So I'll move 4:51. Oh, no, I've got to speed up a bit. 58. There we go. Saturn is on the 3rd house side of vehicles and neighbourhoods and all the rest of the 3rd house stuff on the 4th house cusp at this moment in time, 4:58 p.m. Is this the moment something happened? Let's have a look. I've got to save it and honestly I've run out of names, but bear with me. Okay, so at 4:58, Saturn has hit that IC. Uranus then sits right there on that 7th house cusp. Okay. And now we have the Sun and Mercury and the North Node, that whole lot there, but also the Sun in the 8th house of death. It's moved. The Sun is making this harsh square to Neptune in the 5th house of like fun, drinking, entertainment, etc. He's drinking. Sorry, I'm just going to say it. He's drinking. The Yod is firmly in the 3rd house, the 10th house, and the 8th. The vehicle, death, out exposed in the hot sun, in the heat, for too long. Taurus, lengthy amount of time, caused an accident. I'm really starting to think that something like this has happened. I think the whole story about swimming and everything and all that's just that did happen, but it's all skewed and weird. I never really bought the story about her planting flowers. I didn't buy it. I don't know why. And this would make sense to me. Now, I know I've gone in a completely different direction, but I don't, that's what you do. And I've done this a lot of times, especially rectifying times to match the actual time of possibly what happened. So if anybody could say, no, that's not possible, yes, it could be possible. Where do you guys think she was at 4:58? At 5 p.m, where was she, what was going on at 5 p.m? Because to me it looks like this is painting a bit of a picture. So if we take this to be summer, again, she's Mars, and she's right out in Leo, right up there in the sun. The vehicle's the third house. The ninth house is the opposite. It's like being in the vehicle for too long. Even know what to think at the end of that little last segment, and so now what we're looking at is Don's chart, but it's the 6 a.m. chart, so we can't take into account any of the house cusps at all, really. We're just looking at the planetary configurations here. This is overall a tad concerning. I mean, not everybody with the Sun conjunct Neptune is a liar, but, well, a lot of them are drug addicts. Sorry. It's the truth. Or the square, or the trine, or the opposition. But there's something in that a little. He has a heavy stellium of Pluto, Uranus, and Mars. So that's anger, sudden explosions of anger, sudden fits of anger and rage, definitely. I'll just leave that there, and then we've got Mum's. Again, no time, but we don't have any real obvious indicators of aggression or anything like that. Mum seems pretty relaxed, actually. There is this Uranus opposite Mercury, so perhaps a sudden rashness in regard to things that happen to do with children, or things that happen in her mind even. So a rashness of mind can happen. Mars opposite Venus is not great for her and her relationships, so that's one indicator. Making a T-square to Neptune, actually, which shows that her relationship is based on some heavy stuff. I just don't know which way I lie with her. I feel like she may need to be careful, actually, and even if she's done something wrong, then it's very, very possible that it's through fear. I don't know how scared you'd have to be to do something like that, so I'm not going to judge that right now. I don't know. I mean, according to what I'm seeing, Don Wells is pretty terrifying. He's abusive, he's sexually abusive, he's physically abusive with weapons, and he's an alcoholic and on drugs and does some shitty things. And he pushes the grandmother and pushes her around and other people, and, so maybe people are pretty scared of Don. And the opportunity now to talk is why his family's coming out. So, yeah, I'm definitely heading in that direction. But no matter what, he is the one that is going to unravel this to the end. I'm sure of it, unless the boys do. That's this Sun and Mercury back in those other charts. They're very close, and Mercury's retrograde. They're going away from the sun. They're not going to protect him. I don't believe the boys will protect him or the situation, whatever it may be. Whether it was in a vehicle or what it was, I think it's just going to have to unravel from, I'm not sure. There are too many scenarios, too many working parts, and I think this is one of those ones that this is as much as we can do, really. I've mapped a few places. Actually, I'm going to look at one more area on a map, and then that'll probably be the end of it, I'd say. For me, I feel as though it's the end. I'm hoping it's the end because something will happen and she'll be found. But I think it just has to be the end for the astrology because we're going back to the start, and now, apart from pulling apart every half an hour of the day, we're not going to find out too much more. Well, you will. Believe me, if you're a really great astrologer like Hugh, you'll find a lot. Let's have a look at something else quickly. Let's have a look at this, if you can see it. Oh. Highlight. Okay, it doesn't want to highlight. Okay, 21 or 22 degrees of Scorpio, Donwell's sun in Scorpio. A cataract falling from one rocky ledge to another. God, can you believe that? It is the index of a nature that is impelled by force of circumstances to precipitate and hazardous projects. A restless and impulsive mind, defective in foresight and never aware of danger until it's encountered, the life will be narrowed and confined, and so largely determined by the force of circumstances that it will be in danger of falling from one level to another until it is lost in obscurity and swallowed up into the sands of time. It's happening right now. It's like it's falling in level by level. I don't think it's going to be like he wants it to be lost in obscurity. It is the degree of compulsion, which is that Pluto as well. So that's his sun. And also it's conjunct Alpha Cephentus, the fixed star, which is insanity, accidents, suicide. That was the thing I was going to look at. Is he going to go and do something, run away, kill himself? Yeah, suicide, accidents, problems in love, forgery, shipwreck, loss, earthquake, unfortunate Saturn and Mars. So his sun is really in an unfortunate position and not great in the 12th house of the 911 chart, being all secretive in there. So even if something occurred in the vehicle, then he is still the one, I believe, that has dictated what's happened. And I'm just going to say, I don't even care. I'm just saying it. I mean, he's not a great dude. And I'm not saying that any of them did it, but the charts are the charts, and I have a human nature, and I can see what I can see, and I can profile a little, and I follow the YouTubers and everything, so it is what it is, and the dude is showing himself to be spiraling out of control because of a bunch of stuff that's now been found out about him. That's not a great sign. So, yeah. There was a question as to whether it's possible that the boat was taken across a body of water. If so, this would be that area. I showed it in my last map. Here we go. There's the border of Tennessee and Virginia. Bristol, the place I was looking at before, that is the one that's right on the border. I don't even know if it's in, okay, it says it's in Tennessee, but it could be over the road. It'll be Bristol, Virginia, I'm sure. So an X on there, it's Virginia, and then Regions Bank is Tennessee. And they're across the road. That's pretty cool. I do love exploring America, I will say. What's that bloody place? Sand dump. So, well, that's where one of the lines went, right here. Interesting. This area here. You know, crossing state lines would make sense. Let's go. How far out did I go there? Oops. In kilometres again. So we go 27. I already had the line there, but let's get rid of these other lines. Just get rid of that. So this is 27 miles out. Definitely crosses state lines there. Now, you know, I mean, they're not adverse to going around these areas, so it wouldn't be crazy to think that someone's crossed state lines there at all. If we went out, no, that's the middle. $270 miles. Gosh. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. Where's Utah? Can somebody get this far in that long? Highly doubtful, hey? Highly doubtful. How far can a person get from their house there in, what, 1.5 hours? 1.5 to 2 hours. Travelling pretty fast and reckless, doing something at the other side, and then coming home and calling police and doing all that. Like, I don't know if they can go too far. Okay, I'm going to leave it right there. Q, please keep putting things in. I love reading your stuff. You're so great. I hope you don't mind me talking about everything that you put on there. And please leave comments and let's talk about it some more. But I'm not going to put up another one unless something really radical happens. Because, like I said, I believe that this is the unfolding of the end. Toast. Someone is going to be toast. Let's hope so. Let's hope that this whole thing is actually showing that she's just been given to somebody else. But then why hasn't that other person said that she's here? You know, are they that stupid? The whole world's onto them. They'd be bloody stupid. So that's what leads me away from that again. But I'm no expert. Okay, take care, guys. Love to you all, and thanks for subscribing. Oh, yeah, hit the thumbs up and subscribe and share it to your friends. Bye.